There's a great deal I want to talk about today, and high up on the list is the idea that a State of the Union address was given last night, and the president was being heckled. Like, we've got legitimate internet trolling as leadership now, shouting liar at Joe Biden, who under the circumstances, as a man his age, was pretty quick with an unprecedented amount of disrespect in that room.
He was heckled by a woman who looked like she should have been on Green Acres.
Marjorie Taylor Shit was out there doing just internet troll stuff.
That's not a very clever nickname.
Do you have something better for me?
Marjorie Taylor Shit? I don't know. It just seems like low-hanging fruit.
Okay, but do you have anything? It is. Yes, Marjorie.
I mean, at least make it green shit.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys want to help me with this, that's fine.
Not particularly.
Okay,
No.
Shouting liar during the State of the Union. But before we get to the crisis in our country, because I think we can all agree.
Marjorie Taylor Shit.
That's worse than Fart Bear.
It's great.
Man, no.
It's growing on me.
No,
Proceed.
I really,
like a fungus on shit.
the room, I throw it out to the audience. I acknowledge that it is not my most clever work.
It's a very
Green shit,
Trumpy
yeah.
nickname. Like he's taken to calling
Or
DeSantis wrong.
as I like to call her, Marjorie Taylor Shit.
And he would laugh at himself and think that it's clever too.
Yeah.
Many people are calling her this.
The way Trump felt when he lobbed out the sanctimonious.
He's running with that too. I saw he was truthing some things yesterday about Ron DeSanctimonious. They're gonna tear each other apart, huh?
Oh, is he a groomer?
I think Trump will actually go with Shitty Marge. Kind of like Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, Sleepy Joe, Shitty Marge.
If you want to do better than Marjorie Taylor Shit, have at it.
Or Shitty Marge.
But speaking of shit, our Super Bowl coverage.
We had a human table.
Yeah.
It's rocking so far.
Day one, huge success. We could all agree.
Who else is doing that?
Here's
Everyone
why.
had slow Mondays, not this show.
Nope.
Here's why we cannot agree, Chris. I don't know if you know everything that happened in the background, but 2023 happened to our show yesterday as we've sent a lot of people out to do a lot of work on Radio Row at great expense. And God Bless Football didn't appear yesterday, and the hour that was reserved for it, that our listeners have come to expect, wasn't there for them because God Bless Football never appeared on the feed because Billy wanted the Super Bowl to end before it started, and because Stugotz is Stugotz, and things can be made difficult while he is on an expense account. So you guys tell me what I'm to do with the fact that our listeners were denied an hour that they expected yesterday. Because I was telling Whittingham late last night, I'm like, are we going to drop God Bless Football in the middle of the night? Are we going to drop this? Why are we doing it this way? We're going to do it at 2 a.m. where it doesn't help our listeners? Where's God Bless Football? And Witty, you were dealing with what?
So yesterday, the lads out at Radio Row, I guess managed to secure an interview with Dana White, the president of the UFC, and given everything that's going on around Dana White, unless we're doing like a 60 minutes over a swinging light bulb interview with him, I didn't think that an interview with Dana White should run on this program.
But this was part of our plan. God Bless Football was supposed to produce an episode yesterday from Radio Row where we've got Danny as a table and Anthony Munoz is just wandering around. It's not very hard to get content out there. Was Dana White scheduled? How does Dana White... How? I thought Bad Judgment was on brand for this particular brand. I thought God Bless Football would, of course. I actually, when I saw it on the Twitter feed and I saw that Juju put up Dana White being asked by chuckle-festing Stugotz, hey, no rebuttal here on the Dan LeBatard Show with Stugotz. Say all the bad things, Dana, that you want to say about Dan LeBatard. And then they cut. I'm like, wow, that's an interesting promo. That's interesting as art. What a bad look.
Not great optics. Not great optics, but... to be truthful with everybody in the audience, we haven't listened to what they did with Dana, but we just know some of the players. And it's an assumption on our part, might be unfair, but it's an assumption on our part that it's not the swinging light bulb of Interrogation 60 Minutes interview, but we're going to do our due diligence and listen to it.
Well, why hasn't it been done already? Whittingham killed the Dana White thing unheard just because his distrust of the participants involved is so profound?
I did not kill it. I just said I don't think we should do it. But no, and we didn't have a lengthy conversation about it, but I don't think we should do it. And we can, I'm not saying it's not going to run. I agree with Mike. I think we should listen to it, but that was the anchor tenet of their programming from yesterday, and I think we should have an internal conversation about that.
Well, yeah, I think that the mistake being made here is that there wasn't a conversation, because if it was run across the table, hey, Dana White is available, the message would have been relayed, like, you gotta hold him accountable if you're gonna have him on.
Can I please, because I thought God Bless Football on brand for being a little bit different than everything else we were doing around here, I thought all of that was wildly on brand for them. Will Stugotz betray Dan by talking about his mortal enemy in a circumstance where Dana White would never appear if I were on the show? I don't think that he would subject himself to that particular interrogation. So the only way we get him is by being Stugotz, maximum Stugotz. This happens all the time over on God Bless Football. I thought that was the appeal, or one of the appeals.
It's a cool little cheat code, because while it's a part of the LeBatard show, it's also a part of the LeBatard show, apart from it, and it would allow certain guests that we couldn't have on this show because you have a certain level of integrity, and you're going to make it uncomfortable, and sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and oftentimes a guest isn't
Squeeze
worth
the juice again.
And oftentimes a guest isn't down to be squeezed that way. So, God Bless Football, historically, this may be an unfair snap judgment. It's not as hard-hitting of an interview. It's more lighthearted, more jovial.
But it's
and you can't really do that with Dana White right now. The block is a little too hot.
I think people are very frustrated by this particular labyrinth that has to be walked in 2023 with just an assortment of people. This is the price of doing a sports entertainment show now, that you could be friends with Chris Jericho and Jorge Masvidal, and then over the last 5 years, all sorts of dangerous shit starts happening, and it can't just be happy, clap around and cymbals time. We have sparred with Dana White for 10 years as part of This Is the Sewage Business. We all know it's entertainment. He's a carnival barker. He says ridiculous things. We're going to put him in mainstream power of commissioner guy, voice and face for a thing, but he's running the sewage industry, and he's getting rid of heavyweights that cost money, and he's paying fighters nothing, and now Masvidal and McGregor are his big stars that he's trotting out. Neither one of them has won in a decade because Dana White is keeping costs down, running that business in a dirty fashion, and he did something that, if it were a real sport respected by the mainstream media that wasn't in bed with its partners for millions and millions of dollars, Dana White slaps his wife in public and survives it, applying the punishment himself, because he's in charge of that sport at a complicated time in America when he speaks at the Republican National Convention, and he knows that the power he has is really strong as someone literally named White in today's America. And putting him on, I'd like to hear whether Stugotz was tough on him. Is Stugotz claiming that he was tough on him, that he asked hard-hitting journalism questions?
He said that by the end of the interview, he and Billy had annoyed Dana White. And I don't know what that means. Again, haven't heard it yet. I was reacting to the look of it on social media. Maybe it was a swinging light bulb of interrogation, but he claims that Dana White was annoyed by the end of the interview.
But what do you think about the people in our audience right now that are calling us an echo chamber because of just how much things have changed in the last 6 years? And we used to talk about some of this stuff pretty freely, and now everybody has a voice on all of this stuff. And people in our audience, I'm sure, are saying, what's the big deal? Why not just talk to Dana White? He's still in charge. He's still in power. Why are you applying journalistic sensibilities to any of this? It's the sewage. He's a marketer. It's the carnival.
It's Stugotz.
It's Stugotz. I want to hear from Dana White. I actually want to hear the answer to that question. How do you feel about Dan LeBatard? He does not have rebuttal. Of course, it disgraces me to have my name as he sits down and they chuckle fest, but I thought that's what they were building over there.
Maybe. I just think that he slapped his wife in the face a month ago. It's a fairly villainous figure. As you said, he spoke at the Republican National Convention. Just not like I think from an editorial standpoint, like
But if we're gonna,
not for me.
if
I don't have a problem with the RNC stuff so much, and he's been willing to answer those questions. Just like with Billy and Stugotz, they've been here as we've done very serious conversations over Dana White, and I think they know exactly how you would handle that. And to answer the question, why are you treating this with any dash of journalism, is because Dan's famously a journalist. And that's the prism that we were having loads of these conversations.
But Mike, as everything contorts around this quote-unquote journalism principle in this ridiculous, stupid playpen of a world that I continue to hold on to as it gets bludgeoned by fake news and everyone in our audience hates media the most. Media is the worst. As I cling to this thing, it's literally Dana White, Chris Jericho, and Jorge Masvidal, wrestling characters. Their spoof is sport. They're famous because of how they act and what they do with their mouths. That these three people would be the one that would test this particular journalism theorem. I love the idea of Stugotz taking a hack at that. I don't trust him to handle it well. And should I?
Feel like Jericho's catching a stray just because he played a COVID concert.
Have you heard some of the stuff with Jericho?
Yeah, I have, and Jericho's kind of all over the place, so I don't think it's Masvidal, which, by the way, we gave a South Beach session that I wasn't in the room for, and like I listened back to it with regret. So we're not all an echo chamber, and we're right now contemplating putting the Dana White interview on the air as long as it meets our standard of challenge.
Well, and we haven't heard it yet, but we denied the audience an hour yesterday Chris Cote, I'm curious your honest thoughts. Roy, I'm curious, you guys have sat here for all of this and you got your head in your hands because our Super Bowl coverage has started off as a predictable mess because none of us could have accounted for this particular thing. I can't believe that it's already Wednesday morning and no one's yet listened to this around here.
Oh, I thought it was Tuesday. That sucks.
Oh man, what a long week.
My name's not on the show, so it's a lot easier for me to say I would have just ran it, and then like if Stugotz, if we ran it and he didn't handle it well, then on air we berate him for it, and you it's all in on air, and we just talk it out. Like I thought it's not a great look deleting stuff, so I don't know, but it's not my show, so
I can understand being in Dan's seat. It's the Dan LeBatard show with Stugotz. Dan has been pretty front facing about where he stands on the Dana White stuff. The decision was made to have Dana White on. It was an interview conducted by Stugotz, and we have our concerns that it's not going to meet a certain standard. And on top of that, his first experience of it is this now since deleted social post of Stugotz and Dana White having a big laugh over insulting Dan LeBatard. So I can understand the position that Dan's been put in, and his whole experience with this has been pretty rotten.
But I did not kill this, and when, honestly, I think you guys know this enough about me by now, especially if we're going to exist the way we do now as an entity that's supposed to be free. I looked at that as art on brand for all our shit and said, man, that's symbolically interesting in 2023. I'd go listen to that as a tease.
I was like, that's a great tease.
That's a good tease. I'd go listen to God Bless Football. What did Dana White say? I'm genuinely curious in that situation what he said. I'm not thinking I need a hard-hitting interview, but you guys are protecting me there because my reaction to that, because Juju was apologizing. Evidently, the way that it happened is that Juju just sort of thrust Stugotz and Billy weren't ready. Not surprised. This wasn't part of the plan. They stole him from something. They stole him from Tony Bruno.
Which probably deserves to be in that Jericho class if we're being honest.
That appeared yesterday.
We're embracing Danny Cannell. We're worried about optics here. It's just
honestly, I did not even know. As Bruno appeared yesterday, and he started talking about the I can't be canceled stuff. I'm like, what did you do? I don't know your resume.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I did mention it earlier in the week. But it's going to happen sometimes. And I'm not, despite what some of my opinions are and the conclusions that people draw. I'm not a prude about these things, and I think that we should, as long as it's respectful and not asinine QAnon shit and conspiracy theorists and just a blatant disregard for democracy in this country. I am interested in having some sort of discourse and normalizing that there are sorts of views. It's just that right now, a lot of the loudest views on there are the ones that I find that fall in the category of unappealing.
And some of this is dangerous, man. Rogan yesterday. Rogan with now millions of followers as the country divides in a way that's super strange and doesn't have a lot of public precedent where we can all see it. It's not in the shadows. Joe Rogan is out there getting into the controversy of Jews love money and Italians love pizza as a stupid 2023 controversy.
Well, it's not just Italians. A lot of people love pizza.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I am part
Yeah,
Italian.
I love
but
pizza. I wish I had it
The
now.
Cuban part of me likes pizza. The Irish part of me likes pizza.
Breakfast pizza.
I hate when
would
it
be
burns
nice.
your mouth, though.
I like
Yeah, you can't have it too
how about
hot,
this?
yeah.
I like Mexican pizza. I like all types of pizza.
Hospital cafeteria pizza.
I draw the line there.
yeah,
but if
yeah.
it's the only thing
No.
around, there are just certain times when perhaps you're slightly inebriated that there's just no such thing as bad pizza.
Gas station pizza.
There's no
There's
such
a lot.
thing.
There's a lot of bad pizza.
There's a
Come
lot
on,
of
stop
bad
doing
pizza.
this.
Say it.
Stop doing this.
But
I
if
would
you're
say 50% of pizza is bad.
if you're drunk,
But you
there's
know
no
the
such
saying.
thing.
50 is
But you
kinda
know the
high.
saying. It's like sex. You know, bad pizza's still good.
We do know the saying. 50% Whittingham.
Yeah, I'd say like most pizza places like don't reach for me like the bottom rung is like children's entertainment pizza.
Ooh.
So like that's like a bottom rung
We need
pizza
to-
for
Chuck
me.
E. Cheese pizza is fire.
I think
This
we
guy
should
doesn't
delete
know
this take.
pizza. That's the
On
problem.
fire.
We need to delete this take
Tony,
for sure.
Tony,
No,
we need
Dan,
to,
you know
Tony,
what? No, I'm
we
not
need
gonna
to
do
cancel
this.
you, Tony.
I'm not
Tony,
gonna do this,
Your
Dan.
list on pizza was so bad, Tony. What are you not going to do?
Dan, you don't get it. That's the issue, right?
pineapple
Just like
over
Chris
there.
said, if there is bad pizza, it's just like sex. Even when it's bad, it's good.
Yeah, I back Tony up. I'm not taking my pizza takes from Chris Whittingham and a guy that hasn't had pizza since Reagan.
Weird.
It's one of my cheats. I'll eat it with secret shame.
And French fries on top.
The pizza, I've got a frozen vegan pizza in
What?
my...
No.
Okay,
no,
maybe there
that's
is
bad
such a thing
pizza.
as bad
That's
pizza.
bad
Give me a-
pizza.
I'm gonna give you a hug.
Put
You want me
it-
to come in
put
there?
it- put-
You need a
let's
hug,
put some
man.
of these on the poll.
Perhaps.
Put this on the poll at LeBatard Show. Worst pizzas. Vegan pizza, child entertainment pizza, hospital cafeteria pizza,
It was a weird sentence.
gas.
Child entertainment pizza, Dan. Like, what are we doing
No.
here? I know it's
It's
but-
Chuck E.
but-
Cheese. What do you mean?
Thank
What are
you.
we
I don't
doing?
Dandy
want to.
Bear, Chuck E. Cheese,
I don't wanna-
Discovery
yeah.
Zone.
Okay, let's do ones that are defunct. Dandy Bear Pizza. I don't want to. I mean,
Discovery Zone.
like
Bowling
Chuck E.
alley pizza.
Woody, but you
don't sleep
eat,
on
like,
it.
You notoriously don't eat like very normal things. You don't eat it, so I can't trust you.
You
on
had your
anything.
first Snickers bar like 2 months ago.
and you ate it with a fucking
Fair
knife.
point. Yeah, that I didn't do. But yes, I did have my first Snickers bar like
Oh my
recently.
God, come
What are we
on,
doing
man.
here?
Put gas station pizza on there as well, because you guys are. Is there anything I'm missing here? Because basically, when I say, Tony, I don't know what part of this you're not understanding. Maybe we're not doing this anymore in the modern day. But child entertainment pizza is basically, is there a cartoon mascot type thing playing an instrument near your pizza?
Yes, no, I totally understand what it is. What I'm saying is, Witty calling it a child entertainment pizza was weird.
Man,
That's my point.
It's a cast a wide net. I had more of a problem with the take than the child entertainment thing.
I had more of a problem with Tony's original list of pizza that he's declaring himself an authority here. We have not done bad pizza. We tried to do good pizza, and Tony's list was bad. He was going to make the definitive list of pizza.
He still
Hold on,
has
I'm
his
finding
list
it. I have my
He's-
notes here somewhere.
We gave him the ability
Tony's a foodie.
to make the list, and he made it poorly, and it couldn't be called the definitive list. Whittingham, what is the plan with God Bless Football? We are going to check in with them from the Super Bowl. I don't know how Juju feels about any of this. I don't know how Stugotz and Billy feel about any of this.
That's another part of this, Dan. We're in the business of managing some folks out there that are working hard trying to collect content. I understand things move fast. They probably stand by the interview. I think I know as much that they stand by the interview, and we can't risk losing them. Feelings can get hurt here.
Okay, but what about the conundrum? And I'll leave this alone in a second because there is stuff I want to talk about locally. But what about the conundrum of doing a show in 2023 when there are plenty of people like Chris Cote and myself who want to bypass the gatekeeping or some of the gatekeeping on can this person be at a microphone with, can this be made entertaining and responsible with a person at the microphone that you might not actually want to talk to? Why take away the platform from Dana White just because in the mainstream media, very few people were criticizing him loudly because of their business partnerships at ESPN, at what is that? What is the, it's not, it's,
Endeavor.
it's all of them. It's Endeavor, it was UFC, it was TBS, it was the slap fighting. They all sat it out, and we spent an entire week pointing out to people how wrong it was that Dana White was going to obviously escape consequences and do so because he has a lot of money and power and because he is literal white privilege at the height of a sport and he controls the sport. I would be interested in doing that interview with him. I thought of that when they made a Miami fight with Masvidal. I thought of, man, I hope Dana comes in here so that we can have some genuinely tense discussion about how he runs his sport.
I can't wait to go to that fight. Don't judge me.
But like you're saying, but like we talked about, like the consequences off the back of that not existing, and part of that is him going to Radio Row and very clearly not going to be terribly apologetic about it.
I mean, he has been apologetic. I mean, he's given everybody in the media a pound of flesh. It's just not the entire pound of flesh. Like they want him suspended or punished, and he's saying that his punishment is dealing with the questions. He's actually done a solid job, and Ariel Helwani has admitted this as much. It's just he's done a solid job in answering these honestly and showing the proper amount of contrition in that people are trying to give him outs, and he's not taking it.
Well, TMZ was embarrassing the way they worked with him on that story. Again, people don't care about journalism. So the way that was presented is first crack at it. Dana, no one's going to surprise you. We will work with your PR agents. We will lob you questions about, hey, you were drinking that night, and it'll be super, super soft, and you'll help us control the initial message. That's not journalism. It's just not. That's TMZ being TMZ and getting the story and helping Dana White manage the initial furor that was at the beginning of that, when you can imagine if that tape was discovered by somebody and delivered as scandal, the way TMZ would normally deliver it, it might fan the flames a little more. He worked with TMZ on that. But Dana White has been apologetic, Whittingham. Like that, I don't know what proper contrition looks like to you, but he's said the right words about the shame this is for him.
Agreed. But it still gives off, this is a thing I'll survive. This will blow over. I'll just get right back to being me, which is very clearly demonstrated by him wandering around Radio Row yesterday.
But Witty, isn't that a brand right now, and a brand that you can argue with Rogan or White or their constituency? That brand's winning. That brand, Joe Rogan, that's not a controversy for him yesterday. That's more Spotify attention because people will say, look at Joe Rogan, telling it like it is. Look at Joe Rogan, unafraid of being canceled. You can't cancel him. Even if you could yell anti-Semitism at him. Yell it at him. Is that bad for his brand?
It's just myopic because I also love money. Almost as much as I love pizza. In fact, I can't get pizza without the money.
To me, Dana White now goes out there, and if you can make the trek through all of this from unpopular to popular to polarizing to unpopular to guy who will tell you the truth even in the face of crisis, because I do believe Dana White has actually told the truth in front of this, which is, flippant though you may find it, hey, what do you want them to do? Punish me. I was stunned that Dana White was so comfortable going out in front of the cameras without PR agents taking the first hits on interviews, that he got out there that quickly because they had slap fight coming up and he knew they couldn't do anything to him. So he gets in front of the cameras, and what is he doing for his brand, Whittingham? He's giving honest to those apes in his constituency. He's giving, look at this guy. He's unafraid. He tells it like it is. They're seeing Dana White as accountable. And they defend, many of them, Dana White as a victim. She hit him first. What about equality? Like, he's speaking to those people. And even as he speaks to them, he says, please stop supporting me. That's too far on my brand. Please stop endorsing what I did. What I did has no excuse, as they excuse him. You tell me what the consequences are, Dana White. He told us there would be none, and there aren't.
Isn't that a bad thing?
But if we don't have him on, someone else will. Like, it's not like he's going to have an absence
fine.
of publicity opportunities.
Right. I don't have a problem with him going elsewhere. I think his punishment is us having this discourse right now. His punishment is, do we air this God Bless Football interview because it leaves us all conflicted, and we should just do the due diligence and see if it meets our standard.
What a pathetic punishment.
It's an awful punishment. It's an awful punishment.
I found one.
We're punishing ourselves more than he's facing.
I figured it out. Marjorie Taylor Mean.
Put it on the poll. Worst nickname, Marjorie Taylor Shit or Marjorie Taylor Mean? Worst nickname, because I think both of those are very bad. But that happened last night.
Yeah.
Are we there now?
Yeah,
Wait.
we're there.
Mine
but
rhymes.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
that's a solid advantage. I think we're there now with a handful of folks, and it may seem to a lot of people that civility is out the window at these State of the Unions. I will say that in Canada and in England, you'd be shocked to see how some of these things go. I was locked into public access television in Canada with my mouth wide open, wondering where civility went.
We've aired on Highly Questionable for many years, people getting up, and we studied this as the ultimate disrespect in public. Throwing a shoe at somebody. Throwing a shoe.
Who throws a shoe?
We've seen it
Honestly.
we've seen a few different times.
Bush.
The
They
thrown
threw a shoe
shoe.
at Bush.
But so you guys are now you're telling me you're numb to someone shouting liar at our president
No,
during
I'm
I mean,
not-
somebody shouted this at Barack Obama in 2009.
14 years ago.
2009. I mean, to play the political both sidesism, Nancy Pelosi ripped up Donald Trump's State of the Union after he finished speaking. So you can like that was sort of an act of dissent, as it were.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's performative dissent to appeal to a base, and I would like more decorum. I think the fact that we have more decorum than Canada and England and other parts of the world is not such a bad thing, but it's also not the embarrassment that everyone thinks it is, because it's really more the norm.
I also think it's worth noting what the source of that was, which is Joe Biden said that Republicans are getting behind a proposal to start to cut back Medicare and Social Security, and the Republicans basically, by doing that, said, we're not. Now, we're going to have a debt conversation fairly soon, and the Republicans are going to have to put forward a proposal that doesn't include that now. They kind of backed themselves into a political corner, because that is actually the stance of a lot of Republicans, to cut back those very popular social programs. Mike Lee, the senator, I believe from Utah, said yesterday after the State of the Union, I can't believe he would dare say that. And there's video of him saying, I want to cut back Medicare and Social Security. That's a really big thing that Joe Biden put a huge spotlight on. And the idea that it's become the biggest thing out of the State of the Union is actually probably a political win for him.
I don't know. Just because they applauded that and say they quote unquote agreed, I still think they're going to go through with it. I still think they're going to
that's going to be their proposal. And the Democrats controlling the Senate and the White House is going to stop that probably from becoming policy. But that is a consensus view.
I love, as you guys
that is also a Freudian slip.
I love, as you guys know, anarchy, except, oh, look, Whittingham is bothered now. Whittingham is hurt. Whittingham doesn't like what just happened there.
I stopped on consensus, and I stopped,
Just keep it moving.
Regardless, you guys know how much I love theater, anarchy to things that are treated religiously or sacredly when they are not that religious or sacred. Politics among them, sports. But when everything feels so dangerous, everything feels so divisive, and Mike Ryan says this is closer to normal in other countries, we've actually had a respectful decorum, I'm not going to be numb to the disrespect of this is the leadership we have now as our country feels like it's falling apart. Like this is what we do. This is what passes for leadership. Internet trolling, shouting, lack of decorum. It's much different. I'm not longing for a romantic past where those things are just boring and everyone's standing up 50 times to applaud and it's just a bunch of leadership, the words none of which are remembered because we need entertainment in 2023. So now it's a fight. McCarthy's making faces the entire time behind Biden. It's not about respectful. It's about wrestling. They're doing it as performance art. I don't want to get numb, as we need leadership for that being what's happening anywhere you find money and politics, which if you don't keep those things separate, you get some of what it is you have happening today.
And the other thing too with, like this particular kind of lack of decorum is that we're sort of heading to a place where every president is going to be demonized in this way. Like that actually for me is the concerning thing, is that I find Joe Biden to be relatively anodyne. Yeah. Like he's not someone that elicits very strong feelings, in my opinion, even as someone who voted for him. I'm not like going to the mat for Joe Biden. I think he's like a competent politician. I think the administration has largely been competent, but I'm not like going, like I'm not putting down my sword, or not, grabbing my sword and going into battle for Joe Biden. And yet, the Republican news apparatus has lathered themselves up to such a degree where they think of him as like the Antichrist. When he stands up there, it's like, I have to show how much I hate this person.
But,
and it just feels like every subsequent president is going to be hated to that level.
When I ask, is this where we are now? It's not because I'm offended that it would be disrespectful. It's because it's so dumb. Because we need leadership, and it's dumb. It's a stupid thing to undercut the things that Biden is trying to do systemically with faces and liar and heckling. Like that can't win. That can't be the counter argument.
But to the base of voters, it is though. Like, because they hate the guy. They hate the guy.
I understand that I'm not speaking to them. I understand that this has all been separated. I understand that they're not listening to this. They're listening to another program. They're over there without kick or doing whatever it is they're doing because there's money these days in being an asshole in these fields.
Well, you can't even say that Speaker McCarthy is a good leader for his own party in there, because he said before the State of the Union that his teammates, they weren't going to heckle. They were going to sit down. They were going to be respectful.
He's not in control of that.
No, he's not. Absolutely. So he's not a good leader.
I got Mike McCarthy being in Congress all of a sudden. That's just the visual you guys are painting right now. I just hope you guys know that. Continue.
Well, no, he's not. Yeah.
And Tony and I, the real story last night was, did Jill Biden kiss Kamala Harris's husband on the lips? Now, they clearly kissed on the lips. It's whether or not they like meant to do it and they're just, that's how they roll, or they like got caught in that I'm going
that
left, you go right.
That screenshot is...
Again,
it tells a story.
You're being myopic. This is commonly accepted in other parts of the world.
Yes.
It's actually commonly, everyone has like one of my mom's best friends kisses me on the lips every time we say hello.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's like, that's what, it's like kind of like that thing. She's just like old fashioned, and it's me and my friend Alex talk about it all the time. Like, Gigi, right on the smacker.
So you hold on, a woman your mother's age kisses you on the
just
mouth.
Like, dude, she's like
in front of your wife.
one of my oldest friend's mom. Like, yes, it's like my mom's best friend, and when we say hello, we hug, and she goes right in.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's just distinctly American, guys. Infuse yourself with a little old world.
Meh.
Tony can be proudly culturally ignorant.
Culturally ignorant. Dan, have you ever kissed one of your mom's friends on the mouth?
What do you, Tone? Do you go like both cheeks? Do you go right and left?
No, just straight cheek to cheek, like normal.
I like it both cheeks.
There could be more, like normal can be different
kissing.
things.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I get that, but
when we have people from the Northeast come down here,
you kiss them on the lips?
No, I kiss them. I deprogram myself because the Miami greeting is different than how other parts.
I do the Miami greeting everywhere.
Well, some people don't like the kiss on the cheek as a welcome.
Too bad.
Not
it's a sign of
surprising.
love.
Tony,
it's a sign of respect.
Tony,
it's a sign of
all right, I'm turning off his mic.
Tony, you're gonna get
Thank
me.
God.
You're gonna get me too'd
Jeez.
culturally.
Stop.
Because again, you're
Stop. Just listen to.
you're
folks that are trying to
culturally
help you.
ignorant, and
Kiss your mom's friend on the mouth, man. Open up.
and yes, Tony, I have been guilty also of doing the same thing you're talking about, and I've made many an awkward encounter even more awkward.
It's awkward for me now because my programming is to kiss somebody on the cheek. And now I do like some weird like in between where it's like I don't even go in for the hug. It's just learning.
But
It's just
pandemic too, though, right?
Pandemic helped with this, but no, I just
Kissing's back.
I fight the urge to kiss people on the cheek that I'm just meeting because in Miami, the infused with Latin culture, that's commonplace, but not so much in other parts of this country.
We around here, I think Whittingham, you greet with a kiss as well, even though you're in disguise. You're 100% Colombian. Did you or do you greet with a kiss?
Yes. Although I've actually like more because of what Mike said. I don't usually go in for it now, and sometimes it's led to awkwardness, even like with family members, where I'll go for a hug before I go for a kiss.
But I've had that awkwardness for 20 years. It's pre-pandemic and all of it. I have suffered.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
You're just awkward.
That's true.
You have that on top of everything.
That's true. But I've been also Tony. No, this is the way I greet. This is how I say hello.
Welcome to Miami.
Even if you're backing up, like man, woman, whatever. This is the way that I greet. You should have seen how awkwardly Kornheiser reacted to it when I kissed him on the lips.
Men hello.
I'll turn my mic on for you, Tony.
Men hello.
What?
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
kissed men hello.
Yeah.
Good timing by all of you. Can't wait to get to our organized and chemistry-rich Super Bowl coverage.
And you want to talk about chemistry and high fives and greetings? Nothing was more awkward than Stugotz and Gronk. Did you guys see that high five exchange?
I did not see it. I saw like the video of Stugotz. He has this pose when he has a microphone where all the fingers that are the same size just extend as much as possible. Like his hand stiffens up, and I recognize it. And it always gives me a slight chuckle.
He is talking with his hands more than he ever has. He's putting his hands, all sausage fingers, in your face. But Tony, I did see the high five between him and Gronk, and I thought Gronk was the one who made that awkward by trying. Everybody in.
Well, he was expecting a kiss.
Well, the way Stugotz went in with the sausage fingers, he thought there was going to be some sort of connection, and Stugotz just went for the high five. And then as Stugotz pulls away, you see Gronk go for the grasp.
It's that Gronk's hands are so big and
Yeah.
Stugotz's hands are so small that instead of like one of these, and maybe he was trying to do this, it was just like that. And I was like, ooh, that was weird.
Isn't that great? I'm following along on.
So
It's for
this-
video. It's for video.
So this was a worse greeting between you and Josh Norman. Was this worse?
It was not
That
worse.
was awkward. You
That
should have
also
kissed
looked
him.
like you were going in for a kiss.
Yeah, you should have
It
kissed
was
him.
not worse. I was.
You're like, welcome to Miami, Josh.
That's how we do it around here.
I don't even put the lips to the cheek. It's just like so you can hear it in your ear.
Do you ever do the thing where you do both sides with no contact? Mwah, mwah. No, mwah,
in
mwah.
France?
One cheek is usually what I do.
That's a Miami thing.
But the hand of Stugotz, I think what happened there, because Mojo and others in the God Bless Football crew were all startled when they saw Stugotz next to Gronk and said, I did not know that he was that short. I believe what happened to Gronk is he was expecting the high fives that he's gotten all of his life. And what met him and his extended hand was an infant's hand. It was a tiny little baby's hand. It was one of those hands Mike Ryan was using during the watch party to eat things with. It was, and that he was surprised
Funny.
by it.
It's always funny.
He tried to close his own. Like, that's not how Gronk high fives. He high fives with other people, and their hands are not as big as his, but bigger than Stugotz's. Not an infant's baby's hands. And he tried to reach over and like hold Stugotz's hand like an apple, and Stugotz pulled it away.
It was just an awkward interaction because Stugotz was clearly trying to say, hey, I do a podcast regularly with your brother. And you could tell Gronk had no clue of any of it. It was just like, wait, you know Mojo? Gronk? Oh, and it like dawned on him. So it was just an awkward interaction the whole time, capped off by that awkward handshake.
I'm very concerned about our Super Bowl coverage. Just generally concerned at the amount of money going out and the returns.
That's fair.
Are we feeling?
I feel like they crushed it day one.
Are we feeling? Well, they didn't produce an episode.
But like the social clips, like we were out there. Our
No,
presence was felt out there.
okay, but
Stugotz was working rooms. He was like telling Tom Rinaldi how good looking Greg Olson is, and Greg Olson's like, I'm doing another interview, Stugotz. I can't talk to you right now. It was just great, just chaos.
Again, they didn't produce an episode. The Super Bowl week
Well,
has
they did, but we haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, but not only did they not produce an episode that could be aired for the audience that would expect strong coverage from us during this, but we lost an hour that was waiting for that hour that the audience was denied, and you're telling me they did a good job.
We're building up, Dan. Suspense. You tell them it's going to happen, then they don't get it, and they're like, where is it? I need it. And then once we give it to them, oh, they're going to want it. Can I bring it back to kissing on the cheek for a second? Did you guys do this like in high school with like friends? It was like a status symbol in my high school growing up. Like the popular kids, when they greeted, they would kiss on the cheek. And I remember at some point after a couple years on the baseball team, I like reached the level where it was like, I'm now with a few people. Hey, how's it going? And I'm like, I just remember feeling like I've arrived in this element.
We just had different experiences. I've always been surrounded by loads of Hispanics, and that's just everyone kisses.
Oh.
I'm with you though, Chris. That was the. I mean, I also grew up in Broward, so
Yeah.
Like I think it's a unique experience for us because I was in a fairly diverse high school. And I think a lot of people had to learn the kissing thing, and it did only reach a certain level.
When you weren't part of it, you were like, oh man, they're friends.
Yeah.
They're so cool with each other that they kiss hello, and it's just like I want to do that. And then when I finally got to kiss someone hello, I was just like, I like looked around. Like,
I
anyone
started
see
kissing
that?
people hello in like elementary school. I don't know.
No,
Broward, man.
I'm a hug and
Two
handshake
counties.
guy. I don't kiss.
Two counties. Two counties, brother.
Roy, you are not warm.
I give warm hugs. I just don't kiss.
When you're drinking, you give warm hugs.
Roy, we
Well,
worked
I do
together
when
for
I'm
3
sober.
years. I don't think I've ever hugged you before.
Yes, you have.
You don't even say good morning.
I've hugged
back.
Roy.
Roy,
You just go,
No, I go straight to work.
Roy, you are not. I've been hugged by you very infrequently and only when you're drinking. But someone mentioned yesterday while watching Stugotz in not producing episodes for us, but doing well on social media, that he was hugged into the bosom very warmly of Mike Golick Jr. Many people pointed out that Golick and Smetty have a giant set there with DraftKings, beautiful and professional, and we've got Danny the Table, Stugotz, and Billy.
One's more memorable.
But somebody asked me, Dan, has Stugotz ever hugged you like that? Ever? And I had to think about it for a second and soul search and reach in and be made to feel a little sad and jealous because I thought to myself, there's legitimately only one time in my life that Stugotz has ever hugged me like that, and it was not showing up for my wedding late and brushing his teeth in an adjacent parking lot while wearing sneakers. It's when we signed the last ESPN contract. And he realizes how much he had gotten away with.